The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to the Empower Hour with Greater Nashua Mental Health. The Empower Hour will provide information and support about mental health, substance use, and behavioral health. Our goal is to share inspiring stories about transforming lives, to strike down stigma, and to encourage our community to reach out and get help when needed. Mental health is part of all of our lives. It's time we talk about it. I'm Dr. Cynthia Whitaker, President and CEO of Greater Nashua Mental Health, and it's time to get empowered. Welcome to the Empower Hour with Greater Nashua Mental Health. I'm Dr. Cynthia Whitaker, the President and CEO at Greater Nashua Mental Health, and I'd like to welcome you to our show today. Today, joining me is Mark Durso, who's our Mental Health Court Liaison. So, Mark, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are very welcome. Usually we just start with people kind of introducing themselves, maybe how long you've worked at Greater Nashua, and then jump right into telling us about what you do.
Absolutely. So I've been at Greater Nashua for about 10 years. I started off working for the MST team, which was like an ACT light team, and I then worked for the ACT team. And about 5 years ago, I signed on to be the Mental Health Court Liaison. So I've been at the agency for about 10 years, and I've had a few various roles in that time.
So as the Mental Health Court Liaison for these past 5 years, what does that look like?
So Mental Health Court is a diversion program, and what we do is we help take people from the criminal justice system, whether they have district or superior court charges, and help them transition to get services through the mental health system. So my role kind of on the day-to-day looks very different. Sometimes people are involved in the criminal justice system due to like an urgent mental health crisis. Sometimes people are incarcerated, or sometimes people are out in the community, and we intervene on various different levels, helping get people connected to services which most likely brought them to the criminal justice system.
So it's really about finding ways to get people into treatment instead of staying within this legal system.
That's the whole goal, is to help identify, why somebody kind of may have been in the legal system to begin with, and to see if treatment or, the addition of some community supports can help kind of bring them out of that legal system. And we've been pretty successful with that.
Yeah, I can imagine that some people that don't understand what that is might be like, wait a minute, are people getting out of jail free or something? So what do you say to somebody that might have that concern?
So there is a lot that goes into somebody being involved in mental health court. It is a legal process in which somebody would get enrolled in mental health court, and they do sign a contract which lasts for 1 year. And within that, there are a lot of requirements. One of the big requirements is that every participant in mental health court will meet with the judge and myself weekly for a mental health court review session. So they'll go in front of the judge, and we'll be reporting on their appointments for the previous week, or follow through on some goals they may have identified to the judge or myself from the previous week. So if somebody, for instance, says, I'm going to go out and look for a job, I'm going to start putting in some job applications, we're going to follow up on that during that court review. How many applications did you turn in, or did you have any follow-up with that? And it's the same thing, within that contract, we ask everybody to follow through with their treatment plan. So people also have additional treatment appointments throughout the week. And we're working with treatment teams to make sure that people are following through on those obligations. So did you go to your treatment appointments? Did you follow through on the recommendations of your treatment providers? Did you meet with a case manager, or you've been prescribed medications? Did you pick up those medications? And sometimes there's barriers with that, and we kind of help alleviate some of those barriers. A lot of times people don't have access to funds for medications, so we help kind of look at resources that may be able to to help get those medications for them, or they've maybe missed treatment appointments and we're advocating to get them, help rescheduling those appointments. So we tend to be really aggressive. So there is a lot that goes into somebody being involved in mental health court. I don't really consider it being get out of jail free, because on average, there can be 3 appointments for somebody per week at the bare minimum. It's usually a treatment appointment, a court appointment, and then usually everybody's meeting with me once a week as well. So there is a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot of accountability that goes into that as well.
Yeah, that was the word that was kind of coming to my mind, was accountability. So it sounds like people actually are needing to do a lot of work in this program, which I guess that's the goal, right? Is that they're learning whatever they need to learn or treating whatever they need to treat so as not to stay involved in the court system.
Absolutely. There's so much accountability for the participants, in our program. And I have a lot of respect for everybody who has to go through it, because they really are working very, very hard. And at the end of that year, or for the duration of time they're with us at mental health court, I mean, there is a dramatic difference, in people's lives from when they started with us to when they end with us.
I was thinking as I was driving over here, how long have we had mental health court at Greater Nashua? And I felt like, the 10-year anniversary celebration was just like a year or 2 ago. And it's like, no, it was a few years more than that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So mental health court has been around, it's been around for a while, but the 10-year anniversary was about 5 years ago.
Yeah. I know. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, and over the last 5 years, when I started in mental health court, I think that there was anywhere from 10 to about 15 participants enrolled. And now we have under contract about 55 or 56 individuals right now.
That's a big difference in those 5 years from the size of the program.
It is quite a bit. It's a big difference. But also I think one of the differences is that we're used in court very differently than when I first started as well. We're used as that coordination and that kind of first point of contact for a lot of folks. The court is asking us to meet with individuals, kind of come up with plans for when they get released out in the community, what could be some appropriate resources and supports for them. So that's actually a really big majority of the day is spent doing that. And we do see a lot of crisis. So I think within the past year, we did somewhere along the lines of like 30 involuntary admissions to the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that really is a testament to how much maybe some of these individuals needed some treatment if they're in that much crisis and requiring involuntary admission to a psychiatric hospital. And better to go there than to go to jail or be incarcerated and maybe not get the treatment.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate, all kind of the players involved, which is the police departments and the courts and the attorneys, because, they allow us to be involved, at the very beginning to help divert people, rather than incarceration where they may not receive the treatment that they need versus going to the hospital where they would probably be more appropriately treated.
So you said you've seen the way we use the court change, the size of the program change, and then you just mentioned like the police. Has the view of the program changed kind of in your time, like the way people see it, like maybe people moving away from that? We don't want people to use it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that is a really big change that I've seen also from when I had started 5 years ago, is that I think that the police departments, the courts, the attorneys, the community really sees it as something very successful. And, I think that they are very appreciative of the program, and they're consulting with mental health court very regularly because they see the difference when people do get that support and get treatment and actually can move out of the legal system. So I think that I feel like we're fully supported by the courts and the police. It's really cool, yeah.
Do you, you said sometimes you're consulted. So do you get like a lot of phone calls like before people are even enrolled in mental health court? Like, would this be a good person? Should I recommend it? Like, do you get those kind of phone calls?
Absolutely, all the time,
Yeah,
from
I bet.
attorneys, whether it could be like a bail commissioner, the police department. Would this person be appropriate before they even go to court for sentencing? And then we're meeting with that person and we're kind of coming up with a plan, whether they are or not appropriate. And usually most times, somebody is appropriate, or if they're not, we're helping kind of direct them, what might be some supports that they can use in the community to help kind of alleviate some stressors or barriers that they're experiencing.
I think there's a lot more to it than even I understood like early on. So mental health court's part of sentencing. So someone is pleas and then is sentenced to mental health court. And then there's a contract, which you've mentioned. And so sort of walk us through that process. What is that like?
There can be a couple ways that people get involved in mental health court. So somebody can be sentenced to mental health court, which that could mean they may have to plead guilty, or it could be part of what's like a placed on file arrangement, which means that over the course of that year, as long as they do mental health court, at the end of that, they won't be convicted or prosecuted of the offense that kind of brought them to court. But I think one of the largest ways that we're used is pre-trial. So actually before somebody is sentenced, we're involved, and somebody can sign into pre-trial contract with us. And that may be after they've been arrested, they have that hearing, they sign into contract, and then they wait until that sentencing, and they're working with us and still doing the same things that somebody who is sentenced to mental health court would do, which is the court check-ins, treatment, helping get them connected to resources, meetings with myself. So there's still a lot that goes on pre-trial as well.
To me, that is such an important difference and distinction, because otherwise that person would either be on bail pre-trial and maybe not engaged in treatment and perhaps reoffending before they even get to trial, or maybe incarcerated pre-trial while they're waiting for their trial. So it's like the word early intervention kind of comes into my mind, right? Like we're intervening really early or earlier in the process for those folks.
Absolutely. And I think that, another benefit, I think that it assures the court, rather than having somebody, exactly as you said, traditionally they may be incarcerated until that hearing, where they're able to get out and still have that very intensive monitoring. I mean, they're still checking in with the judge every week. Yeah. There's a lot involved, treatment-wise. So I think that it assures the court as well that we can allow this person to have this opportunity because they're still being monitored. And we're in kind of a unique situation as well in mental health court that we have the ability to do mental health court violations. So if somebody is just kind of went off the radar or is really struggling and we're not able to kind of have an effective intervention, we can actually bring that back to court and kind of do some problem solving. So we have mechanisms if people, are really struggling and kind of we lose track of them.
Well, that's like you've got carrots and sticks.
Yeah.
And I think another question people would ask or wonder about is, so what does mental health court look like in New Hampshire? So we've got this mental health court going in Nashua. Are other places, what do other places do?
So it really depends on, again, so in New Hampshire, I guess it really depends on where you live.
Yeah.
And that can make a really big difference. So Nashua, we're very fortunate because we have a pre-trial track and we have those weekly meetings with the judge. I'm very fortunate I have a case manager with me right now. So there is a lot of support and services within Nashua. But if somebody were to go and they might potentially get arrested in another part of the state, there may not be a mental health court that is offered to them because it doesn't exist in that part of the state, or the process may look very different. Some mental health courts only have, tracks where somebody needs to plead guilty or a placed on file type track.
Meaning they might not have a pretrial.
There's no pretrial, yes. Yeah. Other programs don't have any time with the judge. So it's just meeting with that court liaison. Other programs require you to be involved in like a certain type of mental health treatment. And for us, we not only do we work with folks who are involved in Greater Nashua Mental Health Center, but we work with folks kind of all, it doesn't matter necessarily where they would like to get treatment or where they do previously receive treatment from. We work with private providers, we work with other community mental health centers, so that's something very unique to Nashua as well. And we don't, a lot of other programs disqualify based on certain types of offenses, and in Nashua, we haven't done that. We've kind of allowed pretty much everybody who has come across our radar to, join us.
Oh, that's good. So anybody that meets that kind of eligibility of having a mental illness, that's being part of their court or legal issues.
Exactly.
It's funny, what that makes me think of is, certainly we've also got drug court going on. We've talked a little bit about that on the show with Sheila. We'll probably dig into it a little bit more in the future with somebody else. But in drug court, there's like a lot of national standards, and there's a national conference, and there's regional conferences, and it's statewide in New Hampshire. And no matter where you are, it doesn't always look exactly the same, but there's certainly a basic foundation. And the way you just described mental health court is very different from that.
It is because there are no standards necessarily for mental health court. And when everybody, so I have meetings with the court liaisons, either once a month or bi-monthly, and everybody talks about what one mental health court is simply what one mental health court is.
Yeah.
Because we don't have those standards. So it is very different. In New Hampshire, I'm very lucky because we do meet as the mental health court liaisons, the kind of existing mental health courts right now. We meet and we try to find out how we can improve mental health court and how we can, what mental health court up north looks very different than the mental health court in Nashua, and kind of ideas that we can offer one another and things that they do that I might do and vice versa. So I'm really lucky in that aspect that we have kind of that supportive network, but it is very different depending on where you go.
Do you think, or what do you think, are some of the factors that make it different? I mean, is it simply however somebody decided to set it up, or do you think there's certain factors that make it different?
Well, I think some factors that make it different. I think that, one of the differences in Nashua is that, there are judges who are very invested in mental health and mental health treatment. And I think that they were really, kind of at the forefront of building mental health court. Mm-hmm. And I think in other places they may not have that. That also goes with attorneys, prosecutors, community mental health centers. So I think we're very lucky in Nashua because we have that investment kind of all around the board, where other places may not have that court investment, or they may not have the investment from the public defender's office or the community mental health centers. So I think that really makes kind of the culture, of that court and those kind of supporters makes the big difference.
Like, it takes a village to create a mental health court.
It absolutely does, for sure. And I think that if any of those things kind of don't align, it can really shift and make a very big difference.
Yeah, because I could imagine another community mental health center saying, yeah, we want to have a court diversion program, but if you don't have the judge support or the prosecution support, I could see where it would be a challenge.
Yeah, and having that judicial support is so important. And yeah, if you don't have that, it still can be a functioning program, but I think that it loses a lot because I think a lot of the folks that we work with as well, it's not necessarily the first time being involved in the system. People's ideas, about the system and about supports, and the judge is really a big piece to it all. I think it really holds that accountability.
Yeah, like they're getting to experience the judge in a different way.
Yes.
And so then that maybe leaves them open to other new experiences.
Absolutely. It's an incredibly different courtroom, and anybody who has not been involved in mental health court before and they've been involved in traditional court, I always try to explain, like, this is not traditional court. Like, we're going to come into court and everybody's here for mental health court, and it is a supportive network. The judge knows the resources, is there to be a support, is there to help problem solve. It's not punitive whatsoever. We hold people accountable, but really are trying to look at those barriers. So it's a really cool experience, and I see, within the court reviews, a lot of people, participants connecting and, having long-term friendships and kind of sharing community resources and ideas. It's a really just kind of a really cool, supportive atmosphere.
And you talk about the court session looking different. So what's your role in the court session? You get to speak on behalf of clients. What does that look like?
So my role, I am, I'm up at the bench when we are in live court. I'm up at the bench, with the individual standing right next to me, and we're as a team, kind of reporting to the judge kind of what's going on with the week. And if somebody's struggling with their week, me and that individual will have that conversation prior, and we'll talk about how we're going to address that with the judge. But transparency is very important. But yeah, it's a team approach. That's kind of how we do it.
So if somebody's really anxious and they're struggling to say, yes, I met with my therapist, you can help support and say, yes, Your Honor, they met with their therapist this week. Or
Absolutely. That's exactly what we're doing. A lot of people do become really nervous, their first couple reviews. But I think after they've kind of done it a few times, I think people are really comfortable, and I think that they want to share their experiences and they want to share some of the cool resources that they've utilized and things that have been helpful to them, which has been incredibly important. Not only what's been helpful for them, but when everybody hears that, because people take away with that and they try those new things as well.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of attending some of the graduations, and they're powerful.
Yeah.
To hear some of the stories of transformation that people share or talk about, or even to hear the way the judge during a graduation might speak about a participant. It's just very heartwarming.
Yeah, graduations, that they're really, I think the best way to describe it is just they're awesome.
Yeah.
The judge is so invested in and is working with somebody, again, from that first point, and really knows that person just as well probably as their treatment team knows them. And yeah, the transformation from when somebody comes in to when somebody graduates is phenomenal. And I think it's really important with the graduations. That's something that we didn't do prior, that we kind of initiated 5 years ago, is to have that big celebration. We felt it was really important just to acknowledge everybody's success, going through the program.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of success in a lot of graduations. For
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. One individual, as we're talking, it just comes to my mind, who I know that graduated from mental health court, actually was able to even move on and graduate from treatment, so to speak, just because of all the work that had happened throughout the program, going from not understanding why they were stealing when they didn't have a need for things, to having treatment related to trauma and just digging into where did those drives come from, and understand, and then able to give back, like coming back and helping other clients and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, that just flooded my memory as we're sitting here talking about it.
There are so many. I think everybody is a success story. If you can get through mental health court, because there's a lot. I think it's a success, but there are so many just cool stories of people who have been, we had somebody who was homeless for 8 years, and they left mental health court, and they had been in an apartment for 6 months. They had been sober. They were in treatment. They had all of these really cool things that they hadn't had in so long. So we just have so many cool experiences, and I'm very fortunate that I can go on that journey with somebody and see that transformation, because it's truly just amazing.
Yeah, you've used awesome, amazing, transformation, privilege is a word I use, kind of like to get to witness that story alongside someone. Yeah.
It's incredible, and a lot of times people are coming to us and they have no connection to mental health treatment. They've not even considered that until maybe that point where we've had that conversation, where maybe they were incarcerated, or we're having the conversation while they're in holding right before going up in front of the judge, and we give it a try.
Yeah. Wow, what a good opportunity for people to better their lives rather than just be incarcerated and maybe have an opportunity, maybe not have an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, certainly incarceration brings reflection time, but it also brings other problems for especially somebody with a mental illness like anxiety. I mean, anxiety can certainly be exacerbated in incarceration, or somebody with a history of trauma like the person that had come to my mind as a success story. I remember hearing from that person after incarceration, always a regression.
Yeah.
Always a regression.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that people they underestimate the impact that the legal system has on somebody's mental health. And we're also really lucky. We formulated a group, like a treatment group within mental health court that addresses those exact things, trauma being involved in incarceration, kind of our experiences with the legal system, kind of what brought somebody there. So I think that that's been really helpful too. The group is a 16-week group, and we've had 2 rounds of it. And, everybody has kind of given me good feedback going through it. And people have kind of said, oh, it's really changed my view of, the legal system and, some of these other things. So that's something that we offer folks as well, which we found to be really helpful.
I love that idea. So, because before that, all of the mental health court clients would have their individualized treatments. And so if somebody has anxiety, they get treatment for anxiety. Somebody has psychosis, treatment for psychosis. And this group brings all of those individuals together with their common experience of mental health court and lets them have this addition to their other mental health treatment to talk specifically about what the anxieties of being involved in the court, those kinds of things.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's really powerful to hear everybody's experiences being involved, in the legal system, and their family experiences and everybody's views of the legal system. So it's very powerful. But yeah, it brings everybody together, and we can kind of have this discussion. I think it's really helpful to have that discussion, and everybody, I think, really benefits from talking to one another because everybody comes from different experiences. Some people have been incarcerated and have served 15, 20 years in the incarceration in the legal system, where other people have not set foot in any sort of house of corrections. But it kind of brings everybody together to have that commonality.
Definitely something that's changed in the time that you've been there,
for
sure. And then you mentioned you have a case manager that works with you now. So my assumption when it was a caseload of 15 or so when you started 5 years ago to now a 50, 55 on contract, you needed a little support?
Absolutely. So yeah, I've been very fortunate to have the case manager helping me out, just an additional support, helping people get connected to resources, being able to go and meet people kind of in their environment, at their home, out in the community where I'm not necessarily always able to do that, being in court and, whatnot, that's not always a possibility for me. But this individual is able to really people benefits, kind of housing, transportation, all of these much needed resources to help make them successful. So she's been incredibly helpful, and she comes with a lot of experience working in the community. So even another addition as well.
That's awesome. It's funny, like what happens in my brain as we're talking, because you mentioned open access, which is Greater Nashua's way of getting people for getting intakes and evaluations quickly. And I remember, 10, 12 years ago at this point, when I had just started to be over some of our intake program at the time. And I remember some of your predecessors in mental health court liaisons constantly coming in saying, can I get an earlier intake? Can't I get an earlier intake? This person's involved in mental health court. And how nice to not have to be able to do that anymore.
Yeah, that has been such an incredibly important resource for us at mental health court. So before, I was just providing that support to people until they got to that intake appointment. But now it's so awesome. We can bring somebody to open access that day and they can get help with benefits getting set up. They can go through their intake, and they're going to leave with that appointment, which is super helpful. I think that it alleviates a lot of stress for that individual as well. Just knowing, okay, I got this really big first kind of goal done.
And right away.
And right away, yeah.
Literally right away.
Yeah. And now I have this appointment too
Yeah.
that, I can meet with that next person to work on that next goal. So it's really, it was very, very helpful.
Or if, like you said, Greater Nashua is maybe not the place to provide that ongoing treatment for the person, maybe we're not the best match, you know that right away too, because the evaluation's taken place and is done quickly rather than finding out 3 months later or 8 weeks later, whatever waits used to be like, now I got to go find another provider or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then they're given the resources for the community, and we're also helping because we have a lot of next spot, whatever that may be, really quickly.
Sounds like matchmaking and connecting, and just envisioning this web of connections and all around supporting somebody.
Yeah, it's a lot of networking.
Yeah.
Just talking to the community resources, the hospital. I think one of my favorite parts is getting to meet somebody like initially and hear their story, kind of what brought them there. I think that is kind of one of my favorite parts, because I think it gets me like a fresh perspective on that person, hearing it from them, not hearing it from the legal paperwork or from the attorneys or from the judges, but getting to listen to that person and listen to their story. And then with that person kind of as a team kind of come up with a plan after that. I think that's my favorite part.
You must meet people when they're kind of at their worst, but also maybe open to an intervention because they're at their worst.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that we are meeting folks, they're at kind of their most difficult points in their life. But again, I also think that people are really appreciative of that. I had somebody doing extremely well now, graduated out of treatment. He had said to me he'd been incarcerated for a number of years. He said, all of this time in my life, nobody has ever offered to support me. You're the first person who's come and said, how can I help you? And so that was really like a powerful thing for me, like realizing, okay, like thinking, it just made me think about things so much differently.
Yeah.
And from then on, he really took that and he ran and he took that support, and he's doing incredibly well.
It's like, to me, it's like the power of being seen and heard.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Right. And so this individual that you just described that's, long since graduated and doing well, right? Finally, somebody sees me, hears me, and is still willing to support me.
Yeah.
Right. Seeing me at my worst and willing to support me, and just how inspiring to action that can be.
Yeah. And that was somebody who really struggled to get out of the legal system.
Yeah.
And it's been years since there's been any involvement with the legal system. And that's one example of so many, which is so cool, just being a part of that journey.
I've like, our show is called Empower Hour, right? Our mission at Greater Nashua, empowering people to lead full and satisfying lives through effective treatment and support.
Yeah.
Clearly that's what you're describing mental health court as doing.
Absolutely.
Like empowering people to, with the support we're giving them, figuring out how to get out of the legal system, how to stop kind of that habit that they've created or that they're in, because maybe they're not getting.
It would just empower them to be in control, because when you're in the legal system, you're not in control of anything.
Right.
But to be in control of what they can control. They can control whether they go to treatment or not, or what they talk about, or whether they choose to show up, and most people do. And just empowering them to do that. And if they can't do that, we provide that support. If that's what they want, we provide that support. And I tend to be kind of a pain and can be kind of aggressive with that. So we make sure everybody gets their needs met to the best that we can.
It's a persistent support, maybe.
Very, very persistent, yeah.
That's what I'm envisioning. Persistent support. Whether you know you need my support right now, I'm going to give it to you until you realize you need it.
Yeah, we're very persistent.
Yeah, that's good though, because I think even that shows our willingness to support people. Because sometimes when people are at their worst or when they're experiencing significant symptoms, it's hard for people to accept the support.
Yeah.
And so if we don't offer it again or be persistent with our support, sometimes those people lose that opportunity very quickly because they can easily get written off. And so it just shows, no, even though you don't want me, I'm still here.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. And even navigating through the systems is really difficult. And it's just so complicated. And we, help support and empower that person to do that. But it can be really defeating, just phone calls and, meetings and all of these things. And it can be really hard. It can be a lot for somebody. So we're just there to provide that advocacy and be with them.
I mean, I can imagine. I mean, you say like navigating the system. I mean, sometimes even if you get a letter that's in legalese, it's hard to understand. Or even us like sitting here using words like pretrial and bail. And I mean, what do all those words even mean sometimes? And then if you have symptoms of anxiety or trauma or psychosis or paranoia on top of that, even harder to navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're just there to support, folks. And a lot of times, somebody will come in and say, I just got this letter from court and oh my God. And it is very anxiety provoking. I need to be in court in 3 days and what am I going to do? And, helping support them, maybe getting on the phone with their attorney, or maybe they haven't applied for an attorney and we're helping them do that. Mm-hmm. Being at court with them, just supporting them and helping them manage their symptoms before court and while they're at court and after court too.
Yeah, I've been in the hallway by your office after court. I know what happens after court.
Yeah, after court can just be as hard as before court too.
Yeah, what did that mean? What did they say? Can you remind me?
Yeah.
Or now what do I do?
Yeah, so it's just constant planning and that constant support.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can't highlight enough how important this program is, not to Greater Nashua Mental Health Center, but to the whole community, right? I mean, we said, it takes a village to have a mental health court, but really the village also benefits from the mental health court too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different ways that it can benefit. I mean, it benefits because individuals are having less contact with the police. They're becoming healthier than they have in the past. I mean, it saves money.
Yeah.
It saves resources. I mean, there's so many just benefits to somebody being involved in these type of supports.
I could also envision somebody in a leadership position like mine who maybe doesn't understand the intricacies of mental health court thinking, oh, well, we don't need a liaison. We just need people to be in treatment. But it's clearly not as simple as that. I mean, you've described today how involved you are and how you kind of walk alongside the treatment team to make sure the person's showing up is engaged, that there's not some unspoken barrier to their engagement, and then adding this new group that you all added. There's a lot more to it than just quote unquote treatment as usual.
Yeah.
Because if treatment as usual worked, they would have just been in treatment and not been incarcerated.
Absolutely.
So there's more to it than that.
Yeah, there is so much more to it than that. And I mean, that's why we're constantly, communicating and working with treatment teams to, also help the teams identify. There is so much more to this than just going to treatment.
You're right.
There's so many just different factors and different dynamics. So I mean, I think treatment as usual, if it was successful, they probably just would have done that. But I think our approach, we have, we have some incredible success stories. So
we sure do. Yeah. We sure do. And it's a testament to you and the staff that have come before you in this program, as well as all of our partners in this program. Like you said, just their investment
Yeah.
into the program, into the people, and believing that treatment works. And if people engage in it, that we can help stop some of these cycles and
Yeah.
help people find a better life.
Yeah, I think everything helps pave the way. So the people that were there before me helped pave the way to kind of be in the path that I am right now, and so on and so forth, and constantly having those conversations, and just helping people identify that this is a really big thing that's going on, and treatment really does help, and it can reduce a lot of these things, this interaction with the legal system.
Yeah. It's the other thing that's sort of like in the back of my mind is we're often talking a lot more now about decreasing the stigma of mental health, and people putting their personal stories and being vulnerable, which is great. And I bet there's still a lot of stigma related to like legal involvement and, so are you faking the mental health system? Are you, all of that kind of stuff. It's like a whole nother layer of stigma, maybe that we'll have to attack in a different way.
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the modules that we talk about in the group that we run is the stigma. Stigma being involved in not only the mental health system, but being involved in the legal system as well. There's a lot of stigma to specific charges, whether it could be a stalking charge, sex offense charge, there's a drug possession charge. There's a lot of stigma. It's helping kind of break those barriers and helping us just look at people as people, not necessarily those labels or that kind of stigma associated with it.
Right, the respect and compassion.
Yeah.
My definition, compassion, suspension of judgment, right? If you're judging somebody, you're not really being compassionate. So,
absolutely.
Meeting people where they're at and seeing them, hearing them, supporting them, regardless of what they've done, because there's today and moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things, not only about Mental Health Court, but about the group that we do as well, is everybody's there with all different types of charges, all different types of mental health diagnosis, and it seems to be kind of stigma-free. We're just there respecting one another as people, working together as individuals. I think that's one of the really cool things about Mental Health Court is that that's just the environment in which it kind of harbors, is just respecting people as people.
And understanding the process people are going through and listening to their lived experiences of what it's like, rather than, it's this label or this thing. Yeah. So important.
Yeah. And people see that from the judicial side of things as well. So when the judge is talking and working with people, there's no stigma. It's person talking to person.
Right. People sometimes expect that out of us therapists, but they don't expect it out of the judge or the prosecutor or the police.
Absolutely.
But Mental Health Court gives everybody the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, it's such a great experience to just, I think it's a great experience, not only for me as an observer and kind of a participant, but the folks who are involved in that. Like, wow, this is a judge or the police or prosecutor, and like, treating you just as people, how we should be treated.
Now, you said there's lots of avenues to Mental Health Court. So if somebody is watching who happens to be involved in the legal system, are they able to just talk to their lawyer about it? Is that like often the best way to go about it? Or if a family member is like, hey, this would be good for my family, what's an avenue that people can take?
So there's tons of different avenues which people can take. So if they have a treatment team, they can work with their treatment team and get connected through that. They can call me directly. I kind of have like an open office policy. So if I'm in my office, you can pretty much knock on my door. If I'm with somebody, we'll schedule a time to meet. But they can do it through their attorney, through the courts. Also, the mental health court information is on the New Hampshire court's website. It's right at the top bar. You can click on mental health courts, and it has our all of our contact information and kind of a program description, which has my contact information. It can be as simple as just calling me, and maybe if mental health court isn't the appropriate avenue, we'll help put them in an appropriate avenue.
So just like a defense attorney or a police officer or somebody else might reach out to you and say, hey, Mark, is this person appropriate?
Yeah.
It's fine for a family member or somebody.
Anybody. I try to make it accessible to everybody. I think that is really important. It could be brother, sister, uncle, whoever. Give me a call or knock on my door.
I love that and so appreciate your openness and your compassion for people. And I would say also the hope that you have in that the program works and you'll support people in doing it.
Yeah,
so.
no, I appreciate that. I like to leave it open for everybody because I don't want to be the one closing doors on anybody, because I think for a lot of people, a lot of doors have been closed in many different parts of their life. So again, if maybe mental health court isn't the appropriate option for them, we can help put them in a spot that may be more appropriate, and we can still provide that support. So that's kind of a cool and unique thing about mental health court as well. We just leave it open for everybody.
I love it. We usually end with something about either your advice for how people can empower themselves or an example of maybe how you empowered yourself to be your best self.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it is
so
a good one.
How do I be my best self? So I think, self-care is incredibly important for me. Taking that time every day just to invest back in myself and my family. My family is incredibly important to me. So that's how I kind of empower myself. I have a lot of activities that I do outside of work that kind of help me be the best me so I can come in and show up every day. And I would say that same thing for everybody else. There's something important about everybody in kind of discovering, what is important and holding on to that. I think is, in investing in that every day, I think that could help a person be their best selves.
I love the idea of I invest in myself so I can show up as my best self to help somebody else.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely true of all of us in human services, healthcare, especially right now.
Yeah.
So, well, I thank you for sharing that personal side of you a little bit there with us, as well as all of this awesome information about mental health court. And mostly, thank you for the work.
Yeah,
that you do, Mark.
Thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to talk about mental health court and be here. I'm very appreciative of being here. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you for watching the Empower Hour with Greater Nashua Mental Health. And if you have any questions or want to find out information about any of our services, mental health court included, certainly take a look at our website or reach out to us on Facebook or any of the socials. Thank you for watching. Have an empowering day.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.